What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my podcast. I know I haven't been uploading as much as I had promised or what I've planned to be posting. With this whole disaster, this whole thing going on, I just had to step back and regroup and get my whole family and house in check before I could get back to it. But it's all good right now. And so for the foreseeable future, I should be uploading about an episode a day. Make sure that you like and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you're listening on Spotify, following on all your favorite podcasts apps that you guys use. Just jumping right into it, I just want to get into the main news that I have missed so far. I know that I believe it was yesterday that the Baltimore Raven quarterback, Lamar Jackson, reigning MVP, was working out with Marquise Brown, his current active receiver, and Marquise Brown's cousin, Antonio Brown. If you guys all know what he's most famous for and the trouble he has caused in the past year and a half, I guess you can call it. Obviously, there's have been some problems, but that was beforehand. So I just want to get on to the most recent ones. And I know a lot of people are speculating, will Antonio Brown be signed by the Baltimore Ravens? I don't think so. I don't believe so. It doesn't make sense. Obviously, for Antonio Brown, it would make most sense. They have, the MVP, the reigning MVP. They have Marquise Brown on one side, who is a speed killer. You have, the great running backs on his team, great offensive line. So yeah, it would make a perfect. You got a really great defense on the other side. So really looking at it, and you see all the moves that the Baltimore Ravens have been taking, it would absolutely make Antonio Brown's life a lot easier and give Lamar Jackson that third or second or actually first the receiver threat that would completely alter the defenses that they go against, because they are a running team. And that's what they do. They run the ball. They, the quarterback play action. They do most based on running backs. Kind of like the Dallas Cowboys in the past. Last year they went into starting passing the football, but now, before then they was just running football and just basing off of that because they have Ezekiel Elliott. Well, when you have Lamar Jackson and you have all those running backs behind by committee, you have an amazing ability to run the ball on the teams. Now, once saying this, the only thing keeping Antonio Brown out of the NFL and definitely not going to get him to the Baltimore Ravens is his off the field issues. There's no way somebody can overlook as talented as he is, because believe me, he is talented as if I've ever seen a receiver. Probably going to make it to the Hall of Fame. Should make it to the Hall of Fame. I don't know. Probably take him a few years. I mean, it took T.O. a lot of chances to get, and everything coming out right now about Antonio Brown is a little bit more extreme if you actually compare it side by side. But, I don't want to get into that. It's a topic for the future. But when you talk about talent, Antonio Brown right now probably for sure is top 10, could possibly make it top 5 if he gets back into the game shape that he was before he not took the year off, but got released by multiple teams. And, has not played football since September. So definitely something to look into. Antonio Brown, if he does go to the Baltimore Ravens, which I highly doubt, would make a great fit football-wise. Obviously, once again, going back to the off the field. If we just go through, okay, so this is just a few lowlights of after the whole media coverage that was being on Antonio Brown. So we have the fight with Big Ben, and that's where he was throwing the Gatorade cooler onto the field or moving it around on the sideline. It was crazy just because he didn't get enough targets from Big Ben. Then when you go to March 10th, he gets traded to the Raiders. Obviously, I'm skipping a lot of these steps. I just want to get to the biggest lowlights that he's had. Gets traded to the Raiders. When he gets to the Raiders training camps, he leave practice because he didn't like the helmet that he was using. He wanted to use the one he had previously been using for his career. The NFL had told him a year before, hey, we're going to be switching helmets. You're not going to be able to use that no more. You're going to have to see and find another helmet for you that is approved by the NFL. He chose not to, and he was making a really big deal about it a year after they had told him, and they had let him use that old helmet for the last year of his career so far. Then he gets sponsored by one of the biggest helmet companies in the world, and he just doesn't like a helmet. So he goes into the whole thing. He misses training camp. He misses practice. He has that big fight with Mike Mayock, caused him some racial slurs. Everything was going on. He just at the end of the day, he gets released by the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Raiders didn't basically lose any money because of how the contract was structured and how he wasn't able to just show up. If he had shown up and been on his best behavior for like a month, he would have gotten 30, I believe it was 30 million over 2 years, 30 million fully guaranteed, somewhere around there. But it was insane the amount of money that he gave up just because he didn't want to comply with regular normal human behavior. You have a job, and if the job tells you cannot wear a specific color or something crazy, specific shoes, or you can't wear a hat to your work, and you just keep on wearing a hat, and they let you for a whole year, and you say, what, after this year's done, you're gonna have to stop wearing the hat, and you just keep on wanting it's ridiculous. You have a job, you're an adult, you're a professional. And Antonio Brown just frankly just threw away so much money from the Las Vegas Raiders just because he didn't want to. He didn't want to comply. He didn't want to show up for meetings. He didn't want to show up for practice. He was just it's insane. You can't, and this is after he did this exact same thing to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you come from the Steelers, a marquee franchise in the NFL, and you just you want to do whatever you want. You get away with it for so many years. Mike Tomlin has been on record. You have, if you go back to the reports, he's gotten away with so much that Mike Mike Tomlin has let him get through. And now you create the beast, and you don't want to suffer the consequences, so you trade him. And then when you trade him, you trade him to a good situation. They have John Gruden, is a tough coach, but loves Antonio Brown. You got Derek Carr. You're not going to a bad franchise. You're going to move to Las Vegas. You have a lot of things that you have an up-and-coming team. It looks promising, and you just don't want to do it because you just don't want to do basic human adult responsibilities. And it's insane. Moving on from there, he gets released by the Raiders, and he gets picked up by New England Patriots. Talk about the whole completely different hemispheres when it comes to character building and character conducts. So you have Antonio Brown, after doing all this fiasco with the Pittsburgh Steelers and then getting traded. He was originally going to be traded to the Buffalo Bills instead of the Las Vegas Raiders. He himself blew that deal up. He did not want to go for the Buffalo Bills. So he kind of made a choice in where he wanted to be traded to. And he got traded to the Las Vegas Raiders, and then he just decided he just didn't want to be with them. And then he gets released back again to where I was. He gets picked up by the New England Patriots. He gets along so well with Tom Brady. Everything's going well. He plays with against the Miami Dolphins, and he scores a touchdown. It was insane. It was a glimpse of what he could become in the New England Patriots offense, with Tom Brady and with the whole Bill Belichick, with the whole conduct, becoming and all that kind of good stuff. So you can see a glimpse of it. And then he self-destructs again. During that time when he's with the Patriots, he's accused of a sexual assault from a former trainer. And then, a couple of days later, there's a second report of another sexual assault. And then after the Dolphins game, there's texts that he sends his accusers threatening them. Like, are you serious? You're getting accused and you're threatening your accusers? It's ridiculous. You just played in the game. Stay silent. Just shut up and just play the game. But he can't. He doesn't. And he just, he goes against what the conduct, regulations in New England is, and he gets released. Obviously, after he gets released, he fires back and insults Robert Kraft and all that kind of good stuff. So it's ridiculous on how somebody with so many issues can keep on making more and more issues. So we skipped that part. He was already been arrested in the last year towards the end because his baby mama, was trying to leave his house after he recorded himself screaming insults at her when she was getting escorted by the police out of his house with her children and his children. So they were both, that's the baby mama. So their children, escorted with their mother by the cops, and he's insulting her, he's insulting the cops, he's insulting everybody. It's ridiculous, and he's filming it himself, of course. A couple of days afterwards, the baby mama goes to his house to pick up her stuff. She hires a moving company. He doesn't like it. Him and his trainer beat up the driver of the moving company. Are you serious right now? We're talking about a professional athlete. Of course, he hasn't been a professional athlete since September when he played with the Dolphins, well, against the Dolphins, but still, you're still a professional. You have a huge mansion, you have everything you need, and you beat up with your trainer. Obviously, I would absolutely have to fire a trainer. That's something that a lot of people don't realize, that these professional athletes, these amazing millionaires, these professionals, these have so much moxie, so much everything, and they surround themselves with bad people. What kind of trainer sees you attack a moving truck employee driver and joins in with you? It's ridiculous. Obviously, he should not be his trainer, first of all. Second of all, he shouldn't even be near him. If you have somebody with, and this is obviously unprovoked, yes, you may be upset that your baby mama is trying to get her stuff out of your house. I understand that completely. You don't want to be away from your children. You have to look at it from that perspective. But to pick a fight, a physical altercation, and when it came out the law, this was a full-on felony. So that's how he didn't just beat him, like he left him hurt. I'm talking about the driver, obviously. So it was 2 against 1. It's ridiculous. You can't pick a fight with the driver of a moving truck company. That's just ridiculous. So you can ignore that. When somebody has that kind of behavior, you have to just let it go. You can't keep empowering them. You can't keep showing them that no matter what they do, they will always have a spot. And that's something that, there was rumors that he was going to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because, the relationship he has with Tom Brady. Bruce Arians said no. He just shut that down completely. So that's just ridiculous. When you have somebody, he's more roaming the streets, he has a lot of money. I don't know if you guys have heard his music video or his song that he released. Both of them, actually. I think it's just 2. Maybe wrong about that, but I've heard 2 about the money song, and then there's another one. It was just it was horrible. I don't know how much money he spent, but there's no way he should be rapping right now. But of course, he wants to be in the rapping game, and absolutely was destroyed because he was just absolutely. I saw Logan Paul destroy Antonio Brown in a diss track. So when it's just not a good sight. He's just surrounding himself with bad people, and he's just going down a path of no return. And unfortunately, I if it was me, I would absolutely just put, if I was the NFL, I would just say, if you sign him, you're going to lose draft picks. Or if you sign him, you actually just don't sign him. Just don't sign him. That's simple as that. If I'm the NFL, it's not a good image to have in the NFL. Any person who's just sane, it will not agree with what he's doing. So obviously this whole thing should just be cut. He should just not be given another chance. They were talking about him going to the Baltimore Ravens. If he just completely turned his life around, I would absolutely I hate to see such talent wasted and such talent just, put in the shelf and never seen again. So obviously I'm rooting for him as a football player. But if you just look through all the videos, if you look through everything that he's gone through, there's no way as a person I can, endorse him to go to another professional, because this is perfect. You're getting paid millions of dollars. You have a lot of followers. You're an athlete. You're getting looked up to. You cannot be looked up to when it comes to this kind of behavior. Everything that you're doing is just horribly wrong. So obviously this is just not a good fit, personal wise. Of course, if he turns his life around completely, maybe, I mean, the New England Patriots couldn't do it. Maybe the Baltimore Ravens could. I don't know. His cousin's out there. He's, seems like a good guy. He's super fast. He's an up, as a rising star as a wide receiver. I just don't see Antonio Brown ever having a future ever again in the NFL. Hopefully, I'm wrong. Hopefully, he can turn his life around and become a great player that he was beforehand. But this whole diva wide receiver, he's taking it too far. He's taking it to another level, and it's just ridiculous. So absolutely, I would not endorse that. I can't endorse him going to the Baltimore Ravens. It's ridiculous. Hopefully he doesn't. Hopefully the Baltimore Ravens don't make that mistake. He needs help, and I just hope he just gets it. I would love to see him back in the NFL, but have to I will have to see him change his life around completely, because if you just go down the list, it's not even just like bored, it's like straight up impossible to just imagining him turn his whole life around completely. People don't change, and I really doubt that he will. So definitely something to keep in mind. Moving on to our next topic, I just want to get, if you guys are familiar with this podcast, I like putting little bits of news in between big topics. So we have the Blaine Gabbert re-signed with the sorry, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Always, it's a good backup pickup. I mean, it's nothing great. It's nothing that will threaten Tom Brady. Obviously, we've seen Blaine Gabbert given a chance to start. He just didn't make the most of it. He's not a starting quarterback quality, but definitely a backup. So it's a good pickup. He's not a threat to Tom Brady, but definitely something that will at least get them by in case something happens, which I hope he doesn't. Um, Moving on, we have Tua medical recheck results positive. He's getting a lot of attention right now, because before this season, he was looking at the like a lock in the number one position overall, in the number one spot in the upcoming draft. So definitely something to look into. He has tested positive. About his medical checks, I know he has a lot of surgery, so it's just definitely something to keep in mind an eye on. You have a lot of teams interested in drafting him right now. A lot of the mock drafts have him going number 5 to the Miami Dolphins. So that's definitely something to look into. Definitely something to keep in mind. But I mean, if you had to take a risk on a quarterback, which that's what the drafts are for, basically just taking up a risk and see who you will get. It's just insane. We have Joe Burrow versus Tua. Who would you rather have at this point in time? Tua has done it for 2 years. He's put up great numbers for 2 whole years, while Joe Burrow has just had the phenomenal ultimate, possibly the greatest quarterback college history. So definitely something to keep in mind. I think if I'm the Cincinnati Bengals with the number 1 spot, I would absolutely have to go with Joe Burrow, just because of the injuries that Tua comes in with. We don't know how he's going to react. We don't know how he's going to be. He just had surgery, so it's definitely something to keep in mind on. But definitely, I'm looking at the Charles Davis latest mock draft. He has Joe Burrow going number 1, Chase Young going to number 2 to Washington Redskins. We got Isaiah number 4. We got Tua in number 5. So it's definitely something to look into. Looking at Peter Schrager, he had Joe Burrow at Cincinnati number 1, obviously. Chase Young number 2. And Tua number 5. Yeah, so a lot of quarterbacks going into this first round. I mean, I want to know what you guys think about Justin Herbert. I didn't see much of him in the college football season. Obviously, I'm just gonna be honest, but definitely something is not adding up. I don't see him being that quarterback to be taken in the top 10. I would expect him to be at least in the late 20s, or if not in the second round. But obviously, we've seen a lot of teams move up in the draft to take a quarterback. Sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't. We saw Chicago Bears trade up to get Mitchell Trubisky. Obviously, that did not turn out, but we also saw, New York Giants taking Daniel Jones. As of right now, Daniel Jones looks positive. I don't want to. I don't want to jinx him, so I don't want to say anything. But I was definitely not a supporter when he got drafted. I thought that the New York Giants were insane, as I do believe a lot of people were. I mean, they just obviously not. It didn't make any sense. So far, he's had a pretty good season. He had a really good preseason. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. We also have another big news breaking ish. This was kind of late. I believe it was yesterday. Jadeveon Clowney asking price drops from, he was asking for initially $20 million per season. Now he's closer to $17 to $18 million a season. Definitely something to look in mind. Jadeveon Clowney had a pretty mediocre towards the end. It got better, but mediocre seasons in Houston Texans. But like I said, he definitely had a spike during his last seasons in the Houston Texans, and then he went to the Seahawks last season. Definitely, if you look at the numbers, he didn't have great numbers, and this is beyond the stats for a reason. Because if you look at the numbers, it looks pretty pedestrian, pretty average. But when you saw the game tape, when you saw those games, I was just watching it on regular TV. And even in the play, like he just showed out. You could tell his presence was felt. I saw quarterbacks scrambling. I saw quarterbacks looking scared. He was there blocking passes, tipping them, getting sacks, and all this kind of good stuff. So it's definitely something where you have to look beyond the stats. No pun intended. Just a little bit, actually. But it's definitely something to keep in mind when you have Jadeveon Clowney. I'm actually surprised he hasn't been taking off, picked up by a team. I know that there's two main teams reported that are really interested, with the Seattle Seahawks and Tennessee Titans. If I had to choose one, I probably would go with the Tennessee Titans if I was Jadeveon Clowney. But then again, you have Russell Wilson in the Seattle Seahawks, and the Tennessee Titans just basically got robbed by Randy Tannehill. Hopefully I'm wrong about that. But if you guys know, I am not a huge Ryan Tannehill fan. I thought his season was a fluke. I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I want to see him succeed. I just don't believe in him as much as I do, especially if I'm comparing him to Russell Wilson. So definitely something to keep in mind. I don't see another team that is really interested in him. Obviously, I could be wrong. I mean, I was wrong about the Tom Brady situation. I thought he was going to go to the Los Angeles Chargers, as did most people. Honestly, I don't know if he did wrong, if he picked wrong. Obviously, you have to see how this goes. But when you look at, where he stands, where Jadeveon Clowney stands right now, definitely something to keep in mind. Tennessee Titans, they just signed officially Derrick Henry, $10.2 million franchise tender. So that's a good side. So you have Derrick Henry, you have a good offensive line, you have a great defense, you have good wide receivers on the side. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. You would definitely put the Tennessee Titans up closer to being a contender than they are right now. So Jadeveon Clowney, I'm excited to see where he goes. I want to see him succeed. I want to jump into the Derrick Henry signing. They just signed him to a $10.2 million franchise tender. They're still committed. As this is a report that they're still committed to working on a long-term deal. I hope they do. I mean, obviously, running backs have been definitely undervalued this whole time in the NFL. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. Derrick Henry was the engine in that runaway train that the Tennessee Titans were last season. They took down Tom Brady. Then they took down, I believe it was who did they take down? And they took down the Ravens. I can't believe I just forgot that I had a moment there. But no, absolutely took down the Baltimore Ravens single-handedly. I believe he had like over 200 yards in both of those games. Definitely something to keep in mind. Derrick Henry was single-handedly, and this is the two games that Ryan Tannehill threw I believe like 16 total passes, 15 somewhere around there. So it's definitely, if you look at that and then you look at the other side, who your running back was and what the production that the running back was giving you, you look at that and you're like, wow, that's insane. That's like, you're giving him a lot of money, but the real engine is still there and he hasn't been paid yet. So it's definitely something to keep in mind about the about the Tennessee Titans, because frankly, it's just not fair. We've seen a lot of running backs get paid. Todd Gurley, unfortunately, didn't pan out when he got paid, but they still got a lot of good players. They have Ezekiel Elliott got paid. He had pretty good season last season, but hopefully Derrick Henry gets a huge contract because he deserves it, because he single-handedly took them to the playoffs. So definitely something to keep in mind. Moving on. we have the Dallas Cowboys signing Aldon Smith, 1 year, $4 million. Now, if you guys don't know who he was, like I did for a brief second before I really researched him and saw his game highlights and all that kind of good stuff, he was a pretty good linebacker. And by pretty good, I mean really good. He got drafted from the San Francisco 49ers 2011 NFL draft. He was the 7th overall draft. If you just look at the games, his 2011 rookie season, he had 14 sacks. 2012, he had 19.5 sacks. 2013, he had 8.5 sacks. 2014, 2 sacks, and then with Oakland Raiders, where he went for his final year, in 2015, he had 3.5 sacks. So it's definitely, you see that going down. But the reason that he was going through decline in his sacks, and the reason why he was out of the league was because of his off this field issues. Now, before I jump into that, I just want to reiterate that the Dallas Cowboys are really messing up here. Yes, he could be a game changer. I hope he is. But when you're spending this kind of money on players who haven't been on the football field, much less in the NFL team, for 5 years, you pay him more than the base level. And just to reiterate, he got 1 year, $4 million, and you still have a quarterback who has not been paid yet, and you're out here dishing this kind of cash to players who haven't been playing for 5 years. So that's definitely something that should absolutely be inconsiderate. It's just ridiculous. You're giving him more than I believe the minimum salary is 1 point. No, actually, it's for 7 or more years of experience. He only paid 4 seasons, 5 seasons technically, if you really count it. I'll just give him the 5 seasons overall, but definitely something to keep in mind, that the base salary for an NFL player is about $1 million, somewhere around there. You give or take, depending on the amount of experience that he has, but definitely not $4 million. So you're giving a player who has not played in for 5 years, who's had substance abuse accusations, who he was driving drunk, had DUIs. Definitely something to keep in mind when you're Dak Prescott, because you see this player, and once again, I don't want to keep on talking about bad people in this NFL, but he has been out of the game for some time, and it's for a reason. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. I mean, is just not a good look. He is 30 years of age. He's 6'4". He's a huge guy. He's definitely gonna possibly make an impact. I hope he does. But then again, he hasn't been in the league for 5 years. So it's definitely something to keep in mind just overall, because you don't know what you're gonna get if you're the Dallas Cowboys from this guy. So it's, hopefully I'm wrong, hopefully I'm not. But it's definitely something to keep in mind. And if you're Dak Prescott, you're looking at this player and you're like, he hasn't been in the league for 5 years. He's had an off the field frenzy of bad stories, and you're giving him more than market value that he should be getting. And you look at me and you're trying to give me less than market value. So that's something that if I would keep in mind. That it's something petty if you want to really look at it, counting other people's money. But if you're Dak Prescott, you're asking for $35 million. That's because that's what it deserves. That's what the market is. Unfortunately, I don't think that the Cowboys should be the ones to give them. But I mean, if I was Dak Prescott, I would say, yeah, I don't have off the field issues. I've never been hurt. I've only missed one practice. I haven't even missed a game. So I've only missed one practice. I've gone to the playoffs twice. I've won one playoff game. I've won the NFC, division, NFC East division twice. So it's just something that I was like, why can't I get market value when you give Aldon Smith $3 million more than his market value at this stage and point of time? So it's just definitely something to keep in mind. I would definitely be heated if I was Dak Prescott. Of course, I'm not Dak Prescott, so I hope he's a better person than I would be if my $35 million were on the line. So just definitely something to keep in mind. I don't think the Cowboys should give him money. I want to reiterate that. But if I'm just putting myself in Dak Prescott's shoes, I deserve that money. And it's just something that, they apparently they're not going to be wanting to give him. The whole thing is still going. They were in talks earlier. Unfortunately, they haven't decided on what they're going to do. So it's definitely time to